We do it? You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to the 151st week of Julian Assange Town Hall gatherings. Julian Assange is a prisoner of conscience. Julian is held in atrocious prison conditions because he dared to publish genuine evidence which has shown government and media corruption and lies. According to his wife, Stella Assange, Julian is spending his 6th consecutive day in 24-hour-a-day lockdown due to a positive test result. He should not be in prison at all, but his cruel and inhumane treatment continues. Through Julian, we have learned that power is exerted by those with the means to control the dominant narrative. Wars can be engineered and fought only when the public is unaware of the facts and further fed lies, lies, and more lies. Facts are censored, and those brave enough to break through the censorship are smeared so badly that truth becomes blurred, distorted, and untrusted. Populations are greatly influenced by narratives that have been crafted to benefit the ruling cartel. In recent times, we have seen that masses of people can become so out of touch with reality that they give up their own aspirations and lose sight of their own human rights. Free speech, freedom of expression, and democracy will become meaningless concepts if we allow ourselves to acquiesce to the dictates of the ruling cartel that control the dominant media narratives. Julian is a prisoner of conscience because he didn't acquiesce to the dictates of those who control the dominant narratives. He went ahead and published genuine evidence that made it clear that the dominant narratives presented in our media are built on an elaborate tapestry of lies, to quote Mike Hattrick. Julian's publishing has made it possible for all of us to base our thinking on truthful information. Julian made real free speech, real freedom of expression, and real democracy possible. But unfortunately, this possibility has not yet been realised. This is because people have been too easily distracted by propaganda, which is informed by big data. Big data coupled with artificial intelligence has made it possible for propaganda to be fine-tuned and targeted. When we search on Google, we find our results tainted with dominant narratives working to persuade us into meaningless, divisive understanding. Whenever there is truthful information running counter to dominant narratives, the truthful information is smeared as being extreme left or extreme right. If we allow ourselves to remain manipulated by false left-right divisions, we will perpetuate the deeply corrupted system that is incrementally enslaving us. We must wake up. We must realise that we all have the power to act for the good of humanity. We need to be conscious of information relevant to freedom and justice for humanity. The time for inaction has well and truly passed. Mr. Albanese may benefit from inaction on Julian's freedom, but we definitely won't. The freedom of Julian Assange needs us all to be engaged, because Julian's freedom relates to all of our inalienable human rights. If we stand up for the freedom of Julian Assange, we are standing up for ourselves. Make no mistake about that. I'll repeat, if we stand up for Julian Assange, we are standing up for our rights to know the truth. If we stand up for the freedom of Julian Assange, we stand up for our right to be governed through a truly democratic system that is based on our awareness of truthful information. If we stand up for the freedom of Julian Assange, we will reveal that we are capable of standing up for ourselves. We must wake up and free Julian Assange. So join me. Free, free Julian Assange. Free, free Julian Assange. Inmate. Julian Assange.
Inmate.
Our mate.
Julian Assange.
There is only one decision. There is only one decision. There is only one decision.
Extradition.
Thank you.
Did you hear your name?
Yeah, I heard it.
The Tapestry of Lies.
Yeah. British justice fries and the tapestry of lies. Free Julian Assange.
You've been lied to, folks. You've been well and truly lied to. How many people know where Julian Assange is? We're going to have a bit of hard quiz. How many people know where Julian Assange is at the moment? Hands up if you know where Julian Assange is. I know you know. Anybody out there know? None of you know. Well, I'll give you a tip. He's in prison. You know where he's in prison? Anyone know where he's in prison? Anybody? London, England. What kind of a prison? A supermax prison. And does anybody know what he's been convicted of?
Nothing.
Nothing. And he's been effectively curtailed, bailed up, restricted for where he can go, effectively incarcerated for 13 years. Without a conviction. Does anybody think that's reasonable? Does anybody think Mr. Albanese is 100% responsible? I do.
Yes.
Scott Morrison, was he 100% responsible? I do. How can we let them get away with this? What they are doing to Julian Assange, they will do to you and your family and your children and your grandchildren. They will commit crimes against our families and us as citizens and get away with it. Can we afford to let them continue to get away with this? We thought when we voted for Albanese, he said it was time to rule a line under this matter. It was a time to wind it up, effectively, is what he was saying. What's he done? He's sat on his Royal Derriere, or he's pranced around the world and sipped glasses of champagne with a bunch of politicians that aren't doing anything to stand up for human rights. It's all about human rights, and our human rights have been violated, just as Julian Assange's human rights have been violated. And if we don't stand up for his human rights, who'll stand up for yours? No one. So you better get hip to the fact that our human rights are crucially important. Without free speech, we have nothing. There is nothing to protect us unless we have free speech. And these rights have been removed. And they give us these half-hearted, mealy-mouthed legal reasons, excuses for why they should be able to remove our free speech. There are no excuses. None. Free speech is the only protection a community has against dictatorships, against draconian governments that oppress people. Look what they've done in these dictatorships all around the world, and the people that have spoken out about what's going on and exercised their democratic rights. Many of these countries have imprisoned people. They've disappeared them. How long before that sort of thing might be happening in the Western world? Well, it's already happening. They've imprisoned Julian Assange, haven't they? And they're saying it's because he exposed military secrets. There's not a newspaper in the world that hasn't exposed classified information. In fact, the Der Spiegel, the New York Times, and many other leading newspapers publish the same information that they've got Julian Assange in prison for. But why have they got Julian Assange in prison and not the owners of the New York Times? You know why? Because he's easier. He's easier for them to persecute and destroy and threaten anyone that will expose their crimes. How many people out there believe the government's been telling you the truth about this and a hell of a lot of other things? It's time we citizens started to be a little bit questioning of what we're being told. Because in many cases we're being lied to and it's been used to silence dissent. And we have a right to say we are not happy with this. It's the only reason we have the freedoms we have. And we have to stand up for these freedoms. Otherwise we'll lose them in a very short time. It's already happening. Our human rights are being violated just as Julian Assange's human rights are being violated. And if we don't stand up for it jointly and severally, with our communities and our families, we will lose these rights. It's crucial everyone stands up for human rights. And we cannot allow faceless people to throw anyone they like in jail and keep them there. And as for the media have been totally dishonest and they have been despicable. If anybody out there believes what they're being told by the mainstream media, they're a damn fool. Turn off your TV, it's poison. The mainstream media news is poison. And anyone that believes it's a damn fool, you've only got to spend a few minutes doing a little bit of research on the internet and you'll find the truth, or something you can suspect is almost certainly the truth, but you won't get any of that out of the newspapers. There's a very famous newspaper publisher in America many years ago called Randolph Hearst. And he said, when he was asked about the newspapers, he said, someone said, well, they're not telling people the truth. He said, well, the truth is what we don't tell people. He said, the rest is advertising. Anyway, please stand up for Assange. If you know anyone in politics or the media, tell them that they have to do their job and stand up for human decency and human rights. We're here every Friday from 5 till 7. Please come and join us. When we first started here nearly 3 years ago, there was only about 5 or 10% of Australians realised what was going on and supported Julian Assange. Now there's only about 10% of Australians that support the government doing what they're doing. So we're here till the government gets off their derriere and does something. Every day Anthony Albanese doesn't do something is a day he's losing more votes. Please come join us next Friday at 5 o'clock.
Well done, Billy.
The prisoner of the UK and the Americans, with the approval of the Australian government, Julian Assange, Australian citizen, has been held in Belmarsh prison for over 3 years. He's been in one form of confinement or another for a lot longer than that. Much of the time that he's been in Belmarsh has been in solitary confinement. Last year, approximately this time last year, Julian Assange experienced a stroke, a very serious condition for somebody in his condition. His health had degenerated significantly due to the incarceration that he was in at the time and the virtual enforced incarceration in the Ecuadorian embassy before that. So where does that leave him in terms of his medical condition now? Having experienced one stroke, and I'm not a doctor and I don't pretend to have medical qualification, but I've heard it said from doctors in relation to this particular case. Having experienced one stroke, he is in dire straits in terms of having another stroke, a much more serious stroke. And what are they doing to assist him in that particular predicament that he's in? Has he been moved out of Belmarsh prison or moved out of his cell even to the prison hospital or whatever it's called? No such thing. Has been held in his cell ever since then. Unless he is checked in very regularly under medical supervision, I'm told the chances of having another stroke, a much more serious stroke, are much advanced. This is negligence on a humongous scale. And what is the Australian government insisting that the British government do to rectify the situation?
Nothing.
We have been told nothing. We have been told by our Prime Minister that there's no point in having megaphone diplomacy to further Julian Assange's interests. Okay, that was within 2 weeks of Anthony Albanese coming to power. Maybe you'd expect a man in his position at that point in time to say such a thing. But it's about 5-6 months now since he came to power. So what else has he told us he is doing to assist Julian Assange? Zero.
Nothing.
Now we've been told within the last week that the man has a COVID reading, a positive COVID reading. What are they doing to assist the man now? Has he been moved to the prison hospital or anything of that nature? Why is he in Belmarsh in the first place, given that he has to be in the UK prison system, which I seriously challenge? Why is he being held in a maximum security prison in a dire state of health? I would argue that they are engineering a situation where Julian Assange will be no more. And the Australian government is highly complicit in this. Highly complicit. Why haven't they, since Anthony Albanese came to power, virtue signalled to the Australian government that they're going to do something serious about treating the situation seriously? Why haven't they moved him out of Belmarsh prison, for instance, and put him in a low security jail in the interim?
Nothing.
They haven't done anything of the sort.
Nothing.
This indicates that the assessment of the Americans and the British of the Australians is what I term as weak as piss. In fact, as weak as pasteurised periwinkle piss. They will do nothing to assist Julian Assange unless we make them. Free Julian Assange! Inmate! Julian Assange! Inmate! Julian Assange!
Handcuffed, 11 times. Handcuffed for what? They spied on every legal meeting that Julian had with his representatives in absolute brazen.
By the side of the northern sea, the army had my father, and my mother was having me. Military madness was killing my country. Solitary sadness comes over me.
And I can't believe I see 100 yellow ribbons around the old tree.
4 people in jail that are telling the truth about what's going on in Turkey. The Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, is holding 7 journalists for telling the truth. Azerbaijan, who most notably criticised the United Kingdom for holding Julian Assange illegally, itself has got 4 reporters behind bars for telling the truth. But probably the most important journalist of the 21st century, our boy, Julian Assange, is being held by the United Kingdom for telling the truth. So we all know that not only our government, but all governments around the world jail journalists so they can control the narrative. All of them. There's not one good guy in terms of politicians out there. We like to think there's a good guy and a bad guy, you know, in any conflict. Let's look at Ukraine. You know, we like to think, is Putin the good guy or is Biden the good guy? Guess what? They're both bad guys. Both bad guys, okay? They could be both good guys, but they're not. They're both bad guys. And the war that they're perpetrating there has one simple objective: And that objective is not success. That objective is the transfer of wealth from the poor people to the rich people. Simple. War is about transfer of wealth. Always has been, always will be. The transfer of wealth. And if you think it's anything else, you're being fooled. So, Julian has revealed this. He's brought this truth to light. He's revealed it so that we can stand up against our governments, because our governments are our government. We put them there. We can take them away. We have the power. But to exercise our power, we need two things. Just two things, that's all we need. We need the truth. Well, we've got that. We know the truth. The second thing we need is unity. Once we have that unity based on truth, these empires of lies will collapse, because we will no longer support them. And if we don't support them, they will collapse. It's very simple. Wake up, learn the truth, stand together, and we get rid of these mountains of lies, these endless wars, now these endless pandemics, and endless whatever else. They're all designed to transfer wealth from the poor to the rich. And we've seen a shift in the last couple of decades like we've never seen before, in terms of a shift of wealth from the poor to the rich. There is a concentration of wealth on earth now like never, ever before. So we need to stand up, folks. I've got a little timeline here that's kind of interesting. So we're coming up now for 12 years of abuse of the UK legal system. Due process has been thrown out the window. The Westminster legal system has been trashed. The once revered Westminster legal system copied by every other country because it stood on the premise that it was justice by the people. And it was identified with the jury process, where your guilt or innocence was determined by 12 of your peers. Julian has received 12 years, and not once has he been before a jury. The sentence he's facing is a total of 175 years. I might remind you that he's only ever revealed criminal behaviour, and once anyone, including Julian Assange, is in receipt of evidence of criminal behaviour, they are obliged in law to report those crimes. If they fail to report those crimes, they become a criminal. They become an accessory to those crimes after the fact. So, not only is Julian Assange completely innocent, if he hadn't done what he did, he would have become a criminal. Thank you for listening. To the crown in London town, your tyranny has no match. You became a joke when you placed his yoke for revealing crimes he has done the time. We must restore his life to a new sublime. Thank you, Jenny. Very fine words.
Thank you.
Here to make a stand, we are all Assange.
Waiting for some sort of entry possession. I'm not sure. I haven't been a management in a company.
Either way, whatever.
agenda whereby they have private-public partnerships, which is fascism. They're actually introducing fascism. Remember, Steve, the revolution has started.
And what they've said has been propaganda.
Hey,
November is coming. There will be a change in the world. We're looking towards a more Republican House, probably with common sense. I think that the Biden administration is definitely sleepwalking its way into a world war. You know, we are provoking entities on the planet that are just wrong. You know, it's time to bring this man out of jail so we can actually see the truth. We don't need a royal commission. We need an independent journalist. We need Assange back out of prison. We need him to get behind the computer. We need him to inform minds. Nowadays, it's all about let's get on TikTok. Let's do a little dance. Let's not just do a little dance, but let's, you know, get a cat to jump into an hourglass, and the whole world loves stuff like that. Because our minds are being distracted from what's the reality. And the reality is those who had suffered are the ones who speak out. And those who do speak out are not liked by the majority, because the majority love to be in comfort in a bandwagon. And sometimes you have to be that Comanche running around them on an independent horse. And that takes the wheels off them. So let's bring him back. Come back, Assange, we love you. Thank you. Free Julian. Free Julian.
We are all Assange.